river makes all.
I don't think I'll ever get that right.
I call this meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission to order at 6 o'clock on the 18th of April. May, whatever it is, I don't forget. But we're getting everything in place. It's good to see all of you here. It's been a long time since we were able to look out over this audience and see a number of people. We've had a few scattered here and there, and we're happy to see all of you here. At this time, if you will, I'll ask the clerk if she would to call the roll.
Here.
James Barnett, Sheila Henson,
Here.
Ben Levine,
Here.
Chairman Deese.
Here. Let the clerk make a note for the record that a quorum of the Planning Commission is available. We're short-handed, but we have a quorum and we will continue the meeting. At this time, we will move into citizens' comments. Excuse me, I'll get it out in a minute. And if you will, please bear in mind that this is not a period of dialogue with the Planning Commission. It's not a question and answer period. It's your opportunity to address the Planning Commission with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to the Planning Commission as a body and not to any one individual member. Please speak into the into the microphone and give your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to make your comments. When I call your name, please come forward.
Approve the agenda. You already done that?
Well, that's not what, yeah, we haven't done that.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Pastor Ricky D. Cope.
Thank you, Mr. Deese. Committee, I'm Pastor Ricky Cope of Trinity Baptist Church, 1519 Steel Hill Road here in Lancaster. We want to thank you for your service to our community. And in much consideration, we're trying to rezone a piece of property that we already own, which is on Steel Hill Road. We have approximately 15 acres, 5 of which is for the church itself. We accommodated or purchased another 10 roughly over the last few years. But one of those acreages that we have is also in Lancaster County, and that's allocated for a cemetery. We were told that it did not fit the dynamics of something to do with Van Wyck, which we're not in Van Wyck. But we have a presentation that we wanted you to see concerning what the church has done since we've been in this community. I started this church in my living room 15 years ago with a handful of people, about 12. To God be the glory. The things that He has done has been absolutely astonishing. In our community, and I'll quote Sheriff Barry Fell, we've taken more drugs off the street than the Sheriff's Department. God has done a great work. We are in a full rehabilitation program of people from the street back into productive lives of society. A church should be involved in their community. A church should love their community. And I'm not only the pastor there, but I was born and raised here. I was a graduate in '84. I've been offered churches 10 times the size of mine, but I love my home, and this will always be home. I probably pastored my first and last church because if I can handle these Baptist people, I don't think I want another one. But I love home, and I love Lancaster, and that's why I'm here. We have a presentation I'd like you to see as you consider.
Last over the next couple of 3 minutes.
Well, I think somebody else is. Dave, are you going to speak or are you going to present that? He's next. I think he's on the list, but that's his time.
You complete yours.
Having said that, I would prayerfully have you to consider us being able to expand to this level for our cemetery. I think every church has the right to bury their dead, and it's not like we're bringing in something that's not out of the ordinary for a church, okay? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Pastor Brock Veal.
I'm Pastor Brock Veal, and I go to church at 1519 Steel Hill Road. The church has meant so much to us as a family and as a community. It's been a blessing. I've led the choir. I've been a pastor there, an associate pastor, and it's just been a blessing to see how we've been able to help people in the community and around surrounding counties and really make a difference in our community. So we'd love to see this cemetery take place and move forward and try to continue to help the community in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's all that is assigned to speak to this matter, so we will continue on. At this time, Commissioners, I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, you have before you the minutes for the April 1, 2021 workshop. Do I have a motion? Is there any changes, additions, deletions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. You also have before you the minutes for the April 20 regular meeting. Any changes, additions, deletions, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Levine,
Second.
and a second from Ms. Ensign. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is the Lancaster County School District Impact Fee Study. Lancaster County School District has requested, I would put it in that manner, a impact fee for future growth of the schools in the Indian Land area. So at this time, I will let them begin, if you would.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman Deese, and the rest of the Planning Commission members. I'm Jennifer White with the Lancaster County School District. I'm Chief Financial Officer, and I prepared for you tonight. I know you heard from our consultant, Carson Tice last month, but I thought that I would go ahead and kind of come at it from a different angle for you this month and kind of bring you what our concerns are as a district and what we're faced with, so that as you have questions, we'll be able to maybe address those more easily. So we'll go ahead and get started. So some points. All right.
Can you help her out with, can you help? You can help her transition. Jennifer, you can use the keyboard.
Okay, a few things I want to go over. Some points to consider for our school district impact fee is, why is it needed? Who's affected and who will benefit? What projects are included and what projects were excluded and why? Is there an impact on affordable housing? And has the impact fee for other areas affected construction? And what happens if the impact fees aren't passed? So first off, why is the impact fee needed? As you can see from the graph, these are numbers over the past several years for the Indian land area only. You can see continued growth year over year. That's just created a huge need for expansion of facilities. And again, the impact fee is for facility use only. The next slide is showing you growth in percentages. Obviously, 2021 was impacted by COVID. We had parents who chose private schools due to virtual school not being the best option for them, or that people who, and we expect to see a difference this fall, but people who decided to not start their kindergartners because they decided they would just wait a year, see what came in the following school year. So we expect to see a huge impact this fall. But up until that point, we were looking at most years a 10% increase just in the Indian Land School attendance, which has caused huge issues of trying to maintain a good class size, teacher-student ratio, and serve our students well. So who's affected and who will benefit? So the impact fee collections, this is a map that came straight from the study from Tischler-Bice. It would only affect the area in this map. New construction only. It doesn't affect current homeowners and existing homes. It would be strictly for new single-family and multifamily homes. And those fees could only be used for building capacity and increasing building capacity in that attendance area. So that will affect, those students, but it will also affect the rest of the county. All Lancaster County residents will benefit because any future referendum bond amount, we could back out the amount that we collected in impact fees for that Indian land area and use it for other areas in our county. We can lower the amount of any future bond referendum for those fee amounts, and it would just allow us to use our capital projects money in areas that might need some upgrades to their buildings. Let's face it, our Indian land schools are some of our newest schools. So because our focus has been on just providing room for students in that area, it's affected other schools simply because we have to serve the children. When they walk in the door, when they register, we have to serve them. So we have some older buildings in our district in the other more rural parts of our county that basically, they get what they need, but we're not allowed to do really anything extra because we're just trying to keep up with the growth. So this passing the impact fee will not only affect the Indian land schools, it will also affect every other school facility in our district. So what projects are included? We included purchase of land for either a middle or elementary school. You'll see that in your study as a kindergarten through 8th grade school. Based on trying to utilize our existing buildings in that area to their maximum capacity, we haven't figured out whether that will best be served by a kindergarten through 4th or 5th grade school or through a middle school. So that is just the land cost for that. A building addition to increase capacity at Indian Land Middle School. Many of you are aware that because of opening the new high school, we are trying to utilize existing buildings. So our current high school building will become a 7th and 8th grade campus. Our current middle school building in Indian Land will be a 5th, 6th grade campus. And this is to pull the 5th grade out of the elementary schools in that area so that we can let them have a little bit more breathing room for the time being. But we really are trying to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar by using our existing facilities to the best possible use and coming up with creative ways to do that. So it would also include a building addition to increase capacity at Harrisburg Elementary and Indian Land Elementary. Those schools were built specifically with the capacity to build on and add on to those schools, so we would certainly do that because, as you know, land is scarce up there, and if we have the ability to do that, we felt like it was a better use of money to add on to the existing schools where we could. So what projects were excluded and why were they excluded? We realized that in order to make the impact fee a more palatable amount, again, we know Fort Mill has an $18,000 fee. Ours is between $8,000 and $9,000. In order to make our fee more reasonable, we kind of self-edited. We spoke with Tischler-Bice. They recommended that we include construction costs for that school that we're going to buy the land for. They also said, you know, at some point you're going to need additional high school capacity, whether that's a 9th grade campus, whether that's another high school at some point in the future. Again, we said we don't feel comfortable with that right now. We want to be wise about this and not overextend our builders and to make this impact fee something that didn't seem reasonable. And so we self-edited that. So when we talk about cutting our fee, for us, we already did that on the front end. We didn't include everything they recommended because we were mindful of that and the perception of this. So again, we see this kind of as a reasonable amount to request. And also, I know there's been questions about affordable housing. So you can see from the slide, this comes straight from the impact fee study. So with the impact fee, the monthly payment on the average home with 20% down and a 30-year mortgage at 3%, the monthly payment would be $1,214 versus $1,240. The annual amount is $14,568 versus $14,880. This equates to a monthly cost difference of $26 and an annual cost difference of $312. That includes principal, interest, and taxes. So again, the other amounts are not going to necessarily change, but those are the three that would be changed by adding an impact fee. So as you can see, it's not a large annual cost difference. I also wanted to reach out to other neighboring communities who have enacted impact fees for their schools. And I spoke with the Clovertown administrator as well as the Fort Mill planning director. They both said that they have not seen any slowdown in construction in their areas. They also said they had not heard of any undue impact on small builders versus the large national companies. They said there had been some concern about that, but they had not seen that happen. So I thought that was good information as well. What happens if impact fees aren't passed? Basically, all Lancaster County taxpayers would end up paying for Indian land growth because any future referendum bond would need to include any amount we could offset by impact fees. So facility improvements in our older schools would be delayed since funds would have to go towards the growth and serving those students. The Lancaster County School District, we're committed to serving every child in our district. That is our responsibility. That is our mission. And we believe that they all need to be served equitably and fairly, and that growth should pay for growth in the Indian Land area. So, any questions for me before Mr. Strobel comes up and presents?
Well, I've got questions for everybody. The question that I asked the last time we were here, how much property do y'all have now?
We have no property in the Indian Land area.
Zero property.
Zero property. We unfortunately have not had an inventory of property to choose from. I know other districts have done that and they've made a concerted effort to do that. Unfortunately, the property that we did have in Indian Land, I believe we gave it to the county, and that was, we do not have any other Indian Land property at this time. Yes.
just want to say thank you for the presentation. There were a few numbers on there that I hadn't seen yet that are very helpful to look at. I did look through the study, and I guess I'm from one of the districts, that would be affected by this, and I do have a child who's not in school yet but will be.
Sure.
The growth that you showed on there and what was reflected in the report showing, the schools being at 126% capacity and over 150% capacity for middle schools are definitely frightening for me to think that, that we'll get there, but they are extremely realistic given that, if you look at the number of permits being pulled for new residential houses in the county, the majority of which are in that area.
Yes.
We're talking like 100 homes permits that are being pulled a month, and that's this year. Last year it was more when, before we had the shutdown and everything, 125 permits pulled just in the month of February last year. So these numbers definitely do scare me in terms of how we're going to do this if we don't have an impact fee. Was there a decision that was made to wait to bring this impact fee study until Fort Mill's impact fee study had been reviewed and passed, appeal and everything, just because the concern was maybe that it wouldn't stick?
Yes. Actually, we had contracted out to get, prior to the impact fee study, we had to have a facility needs study as well as growth study done. So we had those done initially, and we're ready to go with our impact fee. But again, we felt like it was prudent to wait because it's, as you know, it's not inexpensive to have these studies done. We felt like it was prudent to go ahead and wait to see what the outcome was of Fort Mill's impact fee before we proceeded. Because obviously if it had not ruled in their favor, this would be a moot point. So that was a deliberate kind of wait to see how that was going to shake out.
Okay. And one other question, and it might be for you or it might be for someone else, depending on who can answer it, but in the study, there are talks about credits given for certain things, in order to offset, everything, make sure the numbers make sense.
Right.
The homes that are part of development agreements where it's been predetermined that there's a $500 rooftop fee or $1,000 rooftop fee for schools, will those be excluded? Will they always just follow that $1,000 rule, or would that be something where they earn some sort of credit towards the?
As far as I'm aware, I have not seen any rooftop fees since I've been on board come to the school district.
Okay. Maybe this is a.
I don't know that county council has determined what development milestone metric might be utilized with impact fees, but as structured under DAs that have come through recently, county council is collecting rooftop fees, but stating that those will be credits against impact fees for a development project if that development project is subject to the impact fee. Stated another way, if a project reaches certain development milestones, it might not be subject to a fee. If it is subject to a fee for failure to meet that milestone, any rooftop fee in the DA would be credited against the impact fee imposed.
Okay, and then the PDD agreements that predate, probably the thought to do that. Do you know if those are just going to be limited to whatever's in the PDD?
That's my understanding, yes. I mean, most of those PDDs are already vested projects, yeah.
Thank you.
Are you discussing impact fees as it relates to the school district impact fee or the county impact fee?
The school district impact fee, but, just because there was basically a contract with the county already that they had a particular rooftop fee, and I was just making sure that, some of those that are more established might not be able to be impacted by this impact fee if there's already some sort of contract in place. And that's all I was trying to make sure of, is to know that, this doesn't necessarily mean that every house permit that's pulled will have this. Some of these will already be subjected to a different agreement that's been, created as a contract with the city, and so, or with the county. So.
Okay. All right.
If I may, Chairman Dees.
Yes, sir.
Melvin Strobel, Lancaster County School District, Board of Trustees, District 1. And we can pull up my slide in a second, but Mr. Levine, part of our confusion on your question is is that the school district currently does not receive any rooftop fees from the county. Secondly, there are 2 impact fees that are being discussed or proposed. One is the county has its impact fee study that is underway or to be completed. And then secondly, the school district has presented its impact fee to this commission for review. So my question to the attorney is, that $500 credit, is that for both impact fees that are being proposed, or is that $500 credit specific to one of the impact fees that's being proposed?
So again, county council has not finalized their impact fee structure or what milestones would be included in that. But as contemplated on currently pending development agreements, any developer fees that the county is collecting would be credits against impact fees if those projects are subject to the impact fees. There are some projects that may not be subject to impact fees due to the effective date of the ordinances and development milestones. But if a project ends up being subject to a development, an impact fee rather, any developer fee collected in that development agreement would serve as a credit against the fee because it would have been a fee collected for that specific use area that's also subject to an impact fee.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification, and thank you for asking the question, Mr. Levine. Mr. Chair, very quickly, what I wanted to do was just follow with, hopefully I can operate this, just follow up with some myth versus facts as it relates to impact fees. And first I want to give credit to Fort Mill School District, who worked with us and said, hey, we've been through this process. So let us share with you some of the information so that we're not reinventing the wheel or plowing new grounds. So a lot of this is paraphrased information from their study, from what they did as well. And the first one that I want to see as a myth versus fact is that the proposed Lancaster County School District impact fee is a tax that impacts all Lancaster County citizens. The fact is that an impact fee is not a tax. It is a fee imposed on new construction only in the Lancaster County School District Indian Land Attendance Zone. Ms. White provided that geographic region to you earlier, so it's only affecting that particular attendance zone at the time of the permit. And back to what she said earlier, the fee is designed to allow growth to pay for growth. We're going to have to take care of these students that are coming into the county with an impact fee or without an impact fee. We have to service them. And it's not fair for the taxpayers, existing taxpayers, to have to carry that burden alone for new students coming in. And the new students coming in have no fees that they have to pay. The second myth is that the proposed impact fee will raise property taxes. While an increase in the impact fee could raise existing home values, current homeowners could possibly see a reduction in taxes paid through the debt service millage. Again, Ms. White talked about the fact that we'll be able to use those impact fees to pay down new construction debt and therefore potentially lower those taxes for all of Lancaster County citizens. The next myth is that an impact fee will limit the affordability of homes. The average new construction price in the Indian Land area ranges from $375,000 to $427,000. And that information I pulled just recently off the internet prior to coming here at 4:30, and that's from 2 realtor associations. One is realtor.com and the other one is TeislerEdit.com. But anyway, I'll provide those to you if you desire to have those. And they both indicated that the median income or median price of homes in the Indian Land area is at a minimum $375,000. So under the requirements of South Carolina Act, which Chairman Deese talked about earlier, the study concluded the proposed impact fee would not affect affordable housing in the Indian Land area. And that information is provided in the report as well. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is this is recent. Again, Fort Mill provided this information. They're tracking single and multifamily home permits since 2018. That's when they were approved and they implemented their impact fee. And you can see over the time period that they've had minimum impact, at least from the impact fee. Now, of course, there's other market variables, COVID, the market itself, interest rates that are all included in that. But their yearly total from August to December was 310. In 2019, 877, 2020, 1,000, and that's combined. And right now they're sitting at 314. And I think the information we got, at least on single home development here in Lancaster, and I assume that's all of Lancaster, there was 1,300 permits that was approved in 2019, and in 2020, 1,400 single-family permits that were approved. And again, I think that's for the whole county and not just for the Indian Land Attendance Zone. So again, we just want to share with you the significance and importance of this impact fee and why it is important for Lancaster County to continue to support our education. We realize that when we are looking at economic development and in continuing to improve Lancaster County, our school systems are an integral, vital part of that discussion. And for Lancaster County to evolve, we must continue to invest in our schools. And this is one way that investment doesn't hurt the taxpayers of Lancaster County. The other thing that I wanted to talk about very quickly was there's been some discussions about the cost. How did we evolve around the $8,700 for multifamily and $8,200 for single-family homes? As Ms. White indicated, we did a study. That study was approximately 14 months long. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And out of that study, those figures were calculated. It concerns me to hear that folks are talking about changing that figure to something other than what's in the study. I would caution us to do that. One, our school district spent nearly $51,000 to accomplish that study. The taxpayers asked us to do it and to make sure that what we're presenting before you is founded, sound information. We could have easily have pulled a number out of the air and said, here's what it is, and saved those taxpayer dollars. We didn't do that. So in addition to the $51,000 we spent for the impact fee study, there was also the growth study to support that. And the growth study parallels what you're seeing in the 2020 census report. That area is expected to grow 50,000 people. Secondly, in addition to that, we also did a facility needs study. And our staff spent, again, long hours getting that information together. So we spent a lot of taxpayer money making sure that we presented to you a bona fide, highly vetted report. And so those numbers stand. Anything less than what we've presented in that report, we will not be able to do construction. Those numbers are based on the economics of where we are today, forecasted, as well as what we project student population to be in Indian Land. Our goal as a school board is to make sure that we're not only servicing Indian Land capacity needs, but we're continuing to upgrade and modify those age facilities located south of Highway 5. It is very challenging for us to do that when we have a finite amount of money, a limited amount of money, and those monies are continuing to go north because we have capacity concerns and trying to lower classroom sizes. So again, I appreciate all that you're doing. I appreciate your questions. Know that we're here to support you in your decision making. We're here to answer all the questions. I'm not an economist, so I don't say that I have all the answers. But the one thing I will say on the way in, I was thinking about the affordability question that Chairman Deese always asks. And years ago, a friend of mine owned a pizza parlor. He said it cost him 89 cents to make a pizza. I assume it's probably $1.50 now with the escalation in inflation. If it's only costing them maybe $1.50, less than $2 to make a pizza pie, a whole pizza, if you can tell me where I can buy a large pizza for
Let's talk
$3,
about the schools instead of food.
for $3, yeah, but I'm talking, I understand. But what I'm saying is when we talk about economy and we talk about supply and demand, what we understand is that people are going to price, regardless of what the product or the service is, it's going to be priced for that area geographically. And so I just ask that we continue to understand that piece. And again, the Chairman Deese, I don't profess to be an economist. I'm just using practical common knowledge of my experiences. But again, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your consideration. And we look forward to answering any further questions you
I've
have.
got one for you.
Yes, sir.
Said you mentioned the price increase of a pizza. Let me ask you this. Do you know what the price increase of lumber is today?
Don't know.
300% over last year.
Oh,
The average house costs $36,000 more to build today than it did last year this time.
Yes, sir.
And you expect a small builder to stay in business, and you expect this real estate agent to stay in business trying to sell these houses.
Yes.
If a guy qualifies for a $200,000 house, he can buy one. But if he can't qualify for $246,000,
Yes, sir.
he can't buy it.
Yes, sir.
If he can't buy it, they're not going to build it.
Yes, sir.
So tell this, what do you anticipate this impact fee bringing in, let's say in the first year? I know that y'all have you've studied and discussed, and what is a dollar figure that you anticipate that it might bring in Lancaster County?
I can give you that answer as soon as I get those numbers from the county. We haven't gotten any numbers from the county on what the number of single-family and multi-family homes are at this point. That's one of the things we had requested just prior to this meeting, but.
Y'all didn't anticipate any dollar figure based on what was done last year?
No, sir, we have not.
That's enough.
Okay, what our study is based on is what we're seeing the need to be at this point in our schools. But we
I
can
know it to
provide
be a
that to you,
fact
sir.
That lumber prices today are 300% over a year ago. A sheet of plywood that sold for $8 last year is $43 today.
Agreed. We can't do anything about the cost of lumber. Again, we are here to be here for our district, to serve our students and to explain our need. And unfortunately, I agree, the price of lumber
Those
has.
prices affect your impact fee because the houses aren't going to get built as fast as they were prior to these increases.
Right, and sir, those same prices, while we certainly look at them from a residential builder standpoint, those same prices are what we have to pay in our construction. When we are also constructing an expansion or new facilities, we're having that increase as well. And so we understand that across the board as a school district, and specifically because not only the price of the lumber and the material to build, the price of land in the Indian land area makes that much more difficult for us. Unlike a residential home who can build on 1/3 of an acre, I need a minimum of 35 to 40 acres for an elementary and middle school. Then when we're talking high school, I have to have 100 acres. Okay? So that's what, and so we're hoping that this impact fee, as I close, sir, helps us to start planning for the future. Right now, our school district is reacting. We're just reacting to the growth, and we are behind.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Anything else, Ms. White?
Thank you very much. We appreciate your consideration, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I will call this into public hearing, and no one is signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing on the school matter. And I might make this statement to Ms. White and Mr. Strobel while you're still here. There being only 4 of us here tonight, I am not comfortable calling for a vote. The other 3, well, the other 2, because we're short one, will be able to hear this conversation on YouTube. And when they're back next meeting night, then we can discuss a vote. If that's not a problem with anybody, I think that would be the best thing. I would rather have 6 people for it than to have half the group for it and the other half against it. So. We'd be happy to come present again. They'll all be able to watch this entire meeting on the YouTube channel. So, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Strobel. There being nothing further, I will call this out of public hearing, and at this time, Mr. Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to call for a vote tonight.
I would suggest that someone make a motion to defer this matter to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make that motion to defer this to the next meeting.
Mr. Levine, and a second from Ms. Henson to defer to this Lancaster County School District Impact Fee Study until our next regular meeting. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is an application by Petcor Investments, LLC, to rezone 33.10 acres of parcel located at 9425 Charlotte Highway. Ms. C.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, this is a request for rezoning, a mixed-use development master plan, and also a development agreement. I'm first going to do a PowerPoint presentation for the rezoning. And okay, as I was saying, so I'm first going to do a PowerPoint presentation for the rezoning request, and then the PowerPoint presentation will be for the mixed-use master development plan as well as the development agreement. So the request before you is for a request to rezone the property located at 9425 Charlotte Highway. The property is approximately 33 acres in size. It's currently improved with a single-family house, and it's mostly wooded. Property is currently zoned general business, and the request by the applicant is to rezone to the mixed-use district. The applicant is requesting to develop a 216-unit workforce apartment project, as well as 2 office buildings. So when we look at the comprehensive plan for compatibility, the future land use category is neighborhood mixed use with a community type of walkable neighborhood. And the requested mixed use district is consistent with this neighborhood mixed use future land use category. However, staff does believe that this property would benefit from a more thorough review of the proposal due to the changes that have happened along US 521 corridor area in this area since the 2014 comprehensive plan. A lot has happened in that time, so our comprehensive plan is pretty general in nature. So again, you can see that the mixed-use district does line up with this future land use category. But since that time, we have a lot of apartments that are currently on the books to be coming up before you. So, you know, they've already been approved. Those are going to be coming up live. And then also, the hospital has come online too. So that is a major use that's come on. It was just approved last year for the rezoning request. So we've not yet received the plans, but that will be a hospital campus just kind of southeast across US 521 here. So we do believe that the property should remain general business in order to, this would ensure the use could be more compatible with that hospital complex. You know, there's a lot to consider that our current comprehensive plan does not. So what are some uses that might be considered for a hospital complex? These are questions we're just not certain of. Again, that was not contemplated with the future land, with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan. The property is surrounded by low-density residential and general business districts. Again, the area is also characterized by vacant and/or wooded parcels, some single-family homes on lots of various sizes. So it's not a traditional, or it's not one of the newer neighborhoods where the lots are one size. But again, it's pretty rural in its nature. I say rural, and it's not dense. And so rezoning from general business to the mixed-use district would generally not be consistent with the surrounding area. There would be no transition to go from the proposed apartment complex to, again, the less intense neighboring uses. So as a result of that information, staff does not recommend approval of the request to rezone. Happy to answer any questions. Also, maybe answering more of them with the next presentation as well.
Questions for staff?
Just so I understand, mixed use would be in line with the current future plans for the area.
The way our comprehensive plan reads, it's very general in its nature. Doesn't drill down into how you might try to make that fit. You know, how exactly is mixed use compatible with that future land use category? Doesn't really tell us, other than you can see when you look at the future land use map and that section in the comprehensive plan, you can see some uses it outlines. Apartments are one of the uses that it does deem to be consistent. But again, at this time, right now, there is no transition. You would just be looking again at the office buildings up along the front, and then the way that transitions back to the apartments along the length of the property. And so again, for now, when you look at those surrounding uses, that's where it's hard to see that transition.
Is the developer okay with leaving it as a general business?
Well, there is no ability to develop with apartments under general business, and the only the highest density you could get from rezoning to, let's say, regional business would be 8 dwelling units an acre, and so typically that's not generally sought after. So this particular developer that is his specialty, is my understanding, and of course they are going to do a presentation a bit later and give you an overview. But that is what they do, is they do the workforce support, in this situation, the workforce apartments. I'm sorry, one thing to add is when you see the office buildings that are proposed with this, they would not be the developer of that. That would be set aside, and as I understand it, another developer would come in and prepare those buildings.
Any other questions for staff? Is the applicant available?
Yes, sir, absolutely. They would like to do a presentation if that's okay with you.
Or if you would, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Mike Byron, and I'm with Petcor Investments. We are based out of Carmel, Indiana, but we're here on the property located at 9425 Charlotte Highway 521. I think. Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission, I thank you for your time. Again, my name is Mike Byron. I'm a developer with Petcor Investments. We have under contract this property located at 9425 Charlotte Highway. We are calling this property Hawthorne Hills Apartment Homes. Let's see if this...
I want to aim it towards that computer.
There we go. All right, thank you. So Petcor, quickly about us, we are a full-service company involved in the development, design, accounting, and financing of affordable workforce housing apartments. We're in 20 different states. We've developed almost 27,000 units. This is all that I do is develop workforce housing apartment communities. The site, this location, the reason why we picked this site and this location, just all of the amenities that are within 2.5 miles of this location. Virtually all the people that would be working at these amenities, from the grocery stores to the pharmacies, to all, here, I gotta point it, gotta remember here. Up there.
Just help them out with it.
How do I do
Use keyboard. Just use the keyboard.
I'm trying to go along as I can. There we go.
On the outer edge of that, right there.
Thank you. One thing that led us here was, like I said, with the location. One thing was with the all the apartments that are currently in existence within 2.5 miles of our planned development here, Hawthorne Hills. There are 6 apartment communities within this 2.5 miles, and those 6 communities. There we go. The average rent of a one-bedroom of those 6 apartment communities is $1,246. Our apartment community for a one-bedroom will be $730. That is a $516 difference. There are lots of apartment communities in Indian Land, but you don't have any workforce housing apartment communities here. What you have, in effect, is a drawbridge comes down in the morning, and people come in from all over, which adds to your traffic problems, to service the people that live here. And at night, that drawbridge goes back up, and those people have to go back out, far out of their way, adding to more traffic woes because they can't afford places to live here, particularly with these apartment complexes around here. I do agree there are lots of apartment complexes, but nothing like what we have planned for the average working Joe. I think the income difference, if I can get, this is just still, back one. So I went around and looked around at what is the closest. So what we do in order to do affordable housing, we get tax credits from the housing agencies. We agree to keep our rents low. We get tax credits. That's what incentivizes developers to do these. So where are the nearest tax credit apartments near Hawthorne Hills? This 9425 Charlotte Highway. The nearest tax credit deal in Union County over there is Cotton Street Commons is 17 miles away. The nearest tax credit community, again, affordable workforce housing community in Lancaster County, is 17 miles south here in Lancaster. The closest one in York County is the Avery, it is the Avery Street, it's in Fort Mill, the Avery Lakes Apartments, 4.6 miles away, and the closest one in Mecklenburg County is in Pineville, the Pines at Carolina Place. There just isn't anything around here that's anything affordable for the workforce community that is working here in Lancaster County. That's what drew us to the area. Trying to go to the next slide. Okay, thank you. There we go. All the amenities within 2.5 miles of where we plan to build. 5 grocery stores, 3 pharmacies, all the elementary schools, all the shopping centers and retail stores. All these people would be income qualified to live where we plan to develop here. All the healthcare centers, and certainly the MUSC planned hospital across the street, more or less cat-a-corner southeast of our location, not to mention the 31 restaurants, 14 churches, the parks, the gas stations, and convenience stores. So everywhere we go in the country, there's more, everywhere we go and develop, there's always a need for more affordable housing in all these metropolitan communities. You don't need me to tell you how fast Lancaster County is growing or the Charlotte metropolitan area. Obviously, that's very well known and documented here. And we just had this presentation about the school impact fees as a result of all this incoming growth. So in order to, if we could pull that up, the rent structure again. So our one bedrooms would rent for $730. That's inclusive of water and sewer for our tenants. Again, that's a $516 difference over the average rents for the 6 apartments within 2.5 miles. A 2-bedroom is $869, and a 3-bedroom is $996. So added with that rent structure, I think there's another chart if you hit the other button there. There we go. So what does that leave? Who can rent that? It's people that make no more than $49,140 is the maximum that someone can make and live there. This is not Section 8 housing. I can't stress that strongly enough. It's called Section 42 housing is what it's called. But we get tax credits to incentivize us to develop these. So with the tax credits, we can charge the lower rents. So then the question is who qualifies for these, who qualifies and has these kind of incomes here? Again, if you hit it again, I think it'll show again, our units are on average $721 more affordable than what exists already in the market within a 2.5-mile radius. So there's the site plan. We do have that frontage. There's about 3.5 acres there. We have 2 office complexes planned, 2 stories tall, about 45,000 square feet of what we hope to be medical office space. We have been talking with MUSC, their chief real estate officer. Her name is Jessica Paul. She's also discussed with their CEO, Scott Broom. They're interested in having negotiations and discussions about purchasing that frontage there for the office space, which would be a good ancillary use and complementary to what we have planned. It would be ancillary, to the MUSC hospital that's planned across the street, and then it would transition into the 9 24-unit buildings that we have planned going back. This is an odd site as far as a shape for an odd site. It is zoned general business, so technically a Home Depot or a Super Target could come in there and build, but with the stream that's down there as well, I don't see how that's the best use for this piece of property. It's a challenge. It's a challenging site. North of the site is also zone GB, general business. However, further north of the site, you can somewhat see is where the trees stop up there. There's some sort of environmental hazard that's up there. I believe it might even be a Superfund site. I know it's not a brownfield site. I believe the contamination still exists up there, which any landowner that's going to purchase land near there would be concerned with leaching in the groundwater and whatnot. We have had a phase 1 done on this property. There is no contamination on what we own. I'm not certain about what about north of there, though, which would, I know there's been talk about a master planned communities and combining this acreage with other acreage, particularly north of there. I think that's a difficult challenge. But we stand here ready, willing, and able to develop this property and pay the impact fees and pay the public safety fees. I do have a concern with general business. There are lots, we drove up and down this road again today, and there are lots of GB sites that appeared available, certainly had signs for sale up and down Charlotte 521 there. And we just feel this is particularly, there's such a need for more affordable housing all around Indian Land and Lancaster County in this area. That's why we feel would be a best fit for this property. So this is this is what we have, the medical office building frontage, the 2-story product there. That's what we came up with. Again, we've had these discussions with MUSC officials about selling them the outlots and then develop these medical office buildings here. The broker that I deal with, he's also forwarded me inquiries of someone asking for medical office building frontage along 521 already. I think they would sell in conjunction with the MUSC planned hospital across the street pretty well. There's a building elevation of what we have planned. What we have planned will be brick and hardy plank. There isn't going to be any vinyl or anything like that. This is going to be a fully amenitized project with the typical unit features of all the appliances, the sink, garbage disposal, oven, freezer, refrigerator, ample space, walk-in closets, patio, furniture, ceiling fans. The clubhouse amenities on the next slide. We'll have a fully amenitized clubhouse with exercise workout facility, business computer center for free use by the tenants and their guests, as well as a community room with a television and a kitchen for parties and whatnot. And this is a rendering of what we have built in and around the area. We have several developments, one that's completed construction in Charlotte and several more under construction or planning and approved. 3-story brick and hardy plank. I want to stress that, hardy plank. 3-story walk-up units, private entry into the units. They'd be 24-unit buildings. I believe these are 18-unit buildings that are being shown. of what our in-house engineer did. Usually it's quicker than this, I'm sorry. But it shows the medical office space out front, and it shows the planned 9 24-unit buildings behind it, a good transition and a buffer. And I just want to note that south of here is single-family off of Dogwood Acres, single-family homes. We had a neighborhood meeting. We did it via Zoom on March 2nd. We've had no negative comments from anybody at that neighborhood meeting. We met all their concerns. We had some challenging questions and concerns. One of the neighbors wanted a fence along their yard. We'll do whatever it takes to be good neighbors. I want to also stress that we also own and manage all of our units. We have our own in-house management company that manages all of our units. We don't farm it out to a third-party manager. They're managed in a no-nonsense manner, which I don't care if you manage luxury apartments or not, but you've got to manage them in a no-nonsense manner. And with that, which we do, we have a proven track record of having done that. Let's go to the next one, that's fine. Yes, that was taking forever. Again, these are affordable housing apartments. There's the rendering of a clubhouse, again, hardy plank and brick. If you can go to the next one. So then, who's moving in? It'd be the Lancaster, Lancaster County employees are people that would be income qualified to live here. Again, people that make no more than $49,140, I think it is. Grocery store employees like the Aldi that's 2.5 miles north. There's a CVS within 2.5 miles. The people that work at CVS. Brick masons and block masons, carpenters, anybody in the construction business, and there are homes being built all over the place in Lancaster County right now. They would be eligible to move in and income qualify. Vet techs, hairdressers, hairstylists, cosmetologists, again, people that service others in the community is who we're talking about, that hold a full-time job, that work for a living like anyone else. Firefighters, sheriff deputies, those are also people that income qualify. And last but not least, I think I have on here emergency medical technicians and paramedics and licensed practical nurses. That's one thing, since we're planning this to go in right across the street from the planned MUSC hospital, these people would live right across the street, would help with congestion and traffic. Not everybody that works at a hospital is a surgeon or a doctor, so there's lots of other jobs within the hospital of those people that would income qualify. This is pictures of our existing product. This one is Steeples in Indianapolis, Indiana, a 3-story product. This one is located in Georgetown. It's in Georgetown, Texas, a 3-story product we have there. This one is in Lynchburg, Virginia, another 3-story product as well. And again, we own and maintain these. And this flyover is going to be slow again. You can go to the next slide. That's fine. I appreciate it. But based off of what we have planned, we believe that our project will reduce traffic for those that live closer to these jobs. We feel this is a difficult site, the way it's shaped for general business, and we feel that with the topo and the way that it's shaped, it's best used as a good buffer between the single family to the south and the general business to the north, the general business to the north. We also are ready, willing, and able to pay the impact fees that were just discussed about beforehand. We understand about growth pays for growth, and that's, that is part of the deal. If you're going to go in some way, pay your way in to get in. We'll do that. But for these reasons, we recommend and we respectfully request a rezoning from GB general business to MX mixed use. And I thank you for your time again. If you have any questions.
Yes, Mr. Levine.
This property, I agree with you for sure, the shape, even for what you're trying to do, it's a little awkward being a long, narrow property like this. Your site plan appeared to try to incorporate some sort of stub out of a road that could potentially be some connector road through the property. It juts out to the general business above as opposed to traveling through. Was that because it was impossible to keep that road continuing west and still have apartments in the section, or?
Can you go back to the site plan? We have here our local engineers with Kimley Horn as well, and they've worked on the site plan and the design with us as well. This is Matt Edwards.
Hi. Yep. So this is Matt Edwards, 200 South Tryon Street, Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, you are correct. Due to multiple streams crossing, zigzagging back and forth. It made actually the permitting challenging, and so we're trying to just minimize impacts. And so we thought the best location for a future stub out is as shown on the plan.
Okay, yeah, my only feedback there would be that I think from the plan perspective, I appreciate how it was run out of the direction of the parking lots and parking areas to try to keep it as more of a collector type of road. But this is definitely one where I think if this routes to the property north of it versus the property west of it, I think it will be very difficult to eventually end up with the true collector road that passes through to Possum Hollow, which is to the west. Just some site plan feedback for you that I see.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Lancaster County Water and Sewer is planning this 20-inch water line at 521. And they're saying they're gonna have to cross some properties, maybe yours, to get to Possum Hollow Road. Have y'all been in discussion with them?
Yeah.
Yes, we have been in touch with them multiple times. We understand that there is a transmission line that needs to connect. We have said we're open to looking at if we can provide space on the site, but we haven't gotten plans from them or looked at it in any detail. We've had at least 2 conversations. I'm aware of it.
You are in touch with them,
Yep.
That's the main thing. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none. We will consider ourselves in public hearing on this matter, and no one is signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you Resolution RZ 2020-2973, Petcor Investments. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of having a motion in the affirmative, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve from Mr. Levine
I second it.
and a second from Ms. Henson. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Levine.
I appreciate that there is a lack of affordable apartments in the area up here. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a complete lack of affordable housing, but for sure the apartments that have been made in this area, and that the image that was shown with the surrounding apartment complexes does not even include all the other ones. I think there are one other one that's maybe been approved and another one that's in the process of being approved. It's just a lot of apartments. That being said, this node here between here and Highway 160, just north of it, where you see the red indicating the regional business and the other blue general business, is a very large employment center in our area, and especially building off of the regional business, which that zone there, it was technically a quote-unquote recycling facility that I don't think anything ever left and was never covered, so I guess it's an uncovered landfill at this point. That whole area can be an expansion of the Edgewater Business Park, which is north of there. In fact, we just had part of that business park that was MX is being asked to be rezoned to business in order to have more business in the area. And between this business node right here and the Bales Ridge Business Park and the Red Ventures area and now the hospital, these are large employment centers that we have. And I think there's just too large of an economic concern for me, economic development concern, that if we start taking some of this area that has been zoned for general business and is really kind of untouched at this point along these main areas, we're just going to still fall into this trap of getting more homes in the area, and instead of reusing some of the places that are already zoned for residential, whether it's low density residential or medium density, and using those areas, if we continue to change our general business, I think we're going to have problems in the area just having these large employment centers so that we can attract another large business and regional business centers. That's my opinion on this. So I unfortunately will not be for this motion. I've made the motion to approve, but I will be against.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
McNeely,
For.
Sheila Henson,
Against.
Ben Levine,
Against?
Chairman Dees,
Against. So the motion to approve failed by a vote of 3-1. This will go to county council for further consideration. The next item is a part of this same one, MX 2020-2973 Petcor Investments. Ms. Katie C.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, this, as you stated, this request does go with the rezoning request that we heard previously. And so again, the requested zoning district was mixed use district. Again, we've discussed that it's for 216 workforce apartments. The proposed density would be 7 units an acre, as well as including 28,800 square feet of office space, and of course a development agreement as part of the requirement. Here's a location map. Sounds like we're pretty well oriented with it. Red star indicates the hospital property. The light blue star is Aldi, and then the darker blue star represents Lowe's. Some photos of the subject property. So a photo on the left is looking at the subject property. Photo on the right is turning around to look across 521. And then photo on the left is looking north along 521, and then on the right is south. Here's just a screenshot of the master development plan. You did get copies in your staff report. Just again to orient you, US 521 is located to the right of your screen. As you can see, it shows the two office buildings proposed to be along 521, and then that leads back to the non-buildings, which would contain collectively the 216 unit apartment buildings. Apartment units. I did want to touch on, Ben, you were talking about the collector road. We had quite the detailed conversation, it was a good conversation with staff and the applicant in talking about the RFAT's collector road through this area. Initially, the thought was, hey, let's find a way to incorporate this into the design, because that is shown as part of the collector road strategy. And with our discussion just led to a level of discomfort for having a collector road running through a property like this where you're going to have kiddos running around. So there was a lot of concern about that. So in the end, that's why it is showing the potential future connection to the northern piece. It certainly could be beneficial with that northern piece if that were to come online and develop as well, because interconnectivity is critical and valuable to have. And so if this, were approved, then we would, as stated in the staff report, would need to do a modification to the RFAT's collector road, which again is showing the road in its current location and running through this property from 521 to Possum Hollow Road. So that, I just did want to elaborate on that for you. Okay, so don't want to hit this word for word because it is in your staff report, but Chapter 9 does require us to go through findings of fact when it comes to a master development plan, and so you look for consistency with comprehensive plan. Again, we've already discussed this and the fact that it is consistent with the future land use category, but for reasons we already discussed, staff does believe there's a bigger opportunity to look more comprehensively at the area. And so because of that, we don't see that is consistent. Integration with the transportation system, again, just as I discussed with the RFATS collector road, that would have required a modification. The existing creek, of course, to the southern boundary and also the western side would pose to be a challenge for future stubs. And so that's why the proposed connection is just to the northern piece. Oh, gosh, sorry. Okay, so Kimley Horn did do the traffic impact analysis. According to our engineer who did the review on our behalf, they did a really good job. It's a very complex site to look at, and she did a very, very good job of taking a look at what are some things to recommend as a result of this. So some things including, so you have your main access point, which, so if you're looking at the site plan, you have a northern access 1 and then a southern access 2. And so the recommendation came out to include the single lane for ingress and egress at access 1, also talking about a left turn lane going northbound, as well as a southbound right turn lane. Looking also for construction of also a right in, right out at access 2, and then also wanting to make sure we're taking a look at some bike and ped improvements. So again, since our engineer did take a look at that, again, thought it was a very good TIA, a lot to take into consideration, but also there are big things to consider here. It's a challenging location, as you are all well know when you're in Indian land driving around. And so the suggestion here, he agreed with at again that first access point, which is at the northern area, adding a left turn lane that's going northbound on 521. One thing he did note was just needing some confirmation that there's adequate truck access for the medical office. Just concerned, would want some confirmation on that to make sure we thought about the larger trucks, and then also adding a southbound left turn lane on 521 at Thousand Oaks. And actually he suggested what you call a Michigan left. So if you're familiar with North Corner on 521 Charlotte Highway, if you've seen that was the recommendation there, so that you would need to turn right out of the property and go to the existing Thousand Oaks Drive, and you would have to do a U-turn there. Looking at access 2, he did suggest a right turn deceleration lane, and then just some verification for the site distance. So again, a lot to think about, and I just kind of wanted to hit that as you think about any growth that goes on in this area. That's a lot to think about. The impact on infrastructure, Mr. Dees, you already touched on that a little bit. The applicant certainly has been in touch with Lancaster County Water and Sewer District. They are aware of improvements that need to be made. Sewer is available, but downstream improvements are required, and then public schools. The impacted area, kids would go to the Indian land schools. Compatibility, this is where, we've already discussed this, so this is an element that we have to consider, is the surrounding uses. Again, currently it's set up to be, it's pretty dense, not dense, sorry, it's not dense, and again, vacant parcels and single family lots. Also, providing a second type of housing could be something that could serve as a transition from the high-density apartment complex to that existing residential development as it is right now. And so, we've already talked about this, how the shape of the parcel is a bit challenging to orient the buildings in order to, get that pedestrian scale that you talk about. The apartment, we have to look at, when it comes to the master development plan, the elevations, the building elevations, to look at the requirements that are laid out there. And then also, this property is located within the highway corridor overlay. So you have to look at the requirements that are proposed there. The apartment buildings do provide variation in the building material and the design. The office buildings do not, but again, those are proposed to be specs. In terms of housing diversity, Chapter 9 does require does require two types of houses. This application only proposed apartments. So when you think of in terms of mixed use, I mean, technically there's an apartment proposed here, and then there's also the office building there. So staff didn't feel that we could deviate from that. But again, it's something to think about. That again, that wasn't provided. If you, as you read Chapter 9, when it talks about requiring at least two different housing types, and providing that second housing type, a less dense one, could serve again as a transition. No flexibility was requested as part of the development plan, and then we've just discussed interconnectivity as well. In terms of the development agreement, I think we're getting used to these by now. You know, the pretty basic template document where you'd have the description, legal description, and as well as the description of the use. The development agreement that was proposed just speaks to the apartments, does not speak to the proposed office buildings, so that would be something that would need to be considered. And then, of course, fees and the TIA. As Mr. Byron touched on earlier, the community meeting was held virtually on March 2nd. I agree that we didn't have a lot of concerns expressed by folks. You know, some general concerns, asking about the location of the property, and as he said, he had a neighbor looking for to see if a fence could be provided. But you know, it was a pretty calm meeting actually. And he did provide an overview of the tax credit program. So in terms of the recommendation, staff does not recommend approval of the master development plan. We don't believe that it meets the findings of fact that are laid out in Chapter 9. Again, those are just highlighted below with the bullet list. And then also staff does not recommend approval of the development agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Mr. Levine?
Just one regarding the northern entrance. Is there already a median break there, or would that be a proposed median?
I'm pretty sure that's a full access median right there. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And for the record, all of you have a copy of a letter from Ms. Brenda Little in favor of this project.
Yes, sir. Thank you. She is an adjoining property owner.
Anything further for staff? Does the developer have anything further to offer? Hearing none, we will consider ourselves in public hearing on this matter. No one has signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you MX 2020-2973, Petcor Investments. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, once again, in order to have a motion in the affirmative, I'd like to make a motion to approve, please.
Have a motion from Mr. Levine to approve,
I second it.
and a second from Ms. Henson. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Tamika Neely,
Or
Sheila Henson,
Against.
Ben Levine,
Against?
Chairman Deese,
Against? MX 2020-2973, the motion to approve has failed by a vote of 3 to 1. This will go to County Council for further consideration. The next item is Development Agreement 2020-2973, Petcor Investments. We have heard from staff concerning this. Does anyone have questions for staff? Hearing none, we will consider ourselves in public hearing on this matter. No one is signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you Development Agreement 2020-2973, Petcor Investments. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of having a motion in the affirmative, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion from Mr. Levine to approve,
Second it.
Have a second from Ms. Henson. Any discussion? Hearing none, have a roll call vote, please.
McAneely,
Or,
Sheila Henson,
Against.
Ben Levine,
Against?
Chairman Dees,
Against. Motion to approve Development Agreement 2020-2973 has failed by a vote of 3-1. This too will go to County Council for further consideration. Next item is RZ 2020-3013, Trinity Baptist Church. Ms. Katie C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so the request before you is to rezone a parcel that's located within unincorporated Lancaster County that is adjacent to the Trinity Baptist Church located at 1519 Steel Hill Road. If you'll remember from your workshop, and as stated in your staff report, the applicant has submitted 2 requests for 2 parcels. One is located within the town of Van Wyck, and one is located, again, within unincorporated Lancaster County. So, of course, you are only taking action on the parcel that's located within unincorporated Lancaster County, and that is the one that's approximately 1 acre in size. But I'm going to be just talking about them both collectively. Okay, so both parcels are vacant, and so the church parcel is located within Lancaster County, and again, the 1 acre parcel is located within Lancaster County, unincorporated Lancaster County, and then the larger parcel that's about 8.9 acres in size is located within the town of Van Wyck. So this property is surrounded by RN zone properties as well as one institutional piece, which of course is the Trinity Baptist Church property. And the requested institutional district is compatible with those surrounding districts because again, you would be expanding upon the existing church, the church on its existing parcel. Staff has received 2 calls from the public just expressing concern really about just not knowing what the requested use is. They weren't, outlandish, just had some concerns. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of background. Again, so we are dealing with 2 separate jurisdictions here. So currently, the staff here at Lancaster County administers the applications for the town of Van Wyck and unincorporated Lancaster County. So we start the process. We receive the application, process them, but then the companion case here is going to the town of Van Wyck Planning Commission and then ultimately their town council. And so for now, we are working off of the same zoning ordinance as Van Wyck has adopted our Unified Development Ordinance in the way it is, and also with future amendments. The town of Van Wyck is in the process of adopting their own comprehensive plan that is scheduled to be adopted, they say, this July. So then you will have, again, the Lancaster County zoning comprehensive plan, their comprehensive plan, and again, for now, our Unified Development Ordinance. So just giving you a little update on what's going on in Van Wyck here right now, too. And so it is the goal for Van Wyck to eventually work on their own Unified Development Ordinance. Maybe they've already started, but that's still some time out. So the reason I bring that up is just it's something to consider because right now, with being in different jurisdictions, whatever the use could be. So one parcel looking to be a cemetery, if that's contained to the one parcel, that should not be an issue, if it stays within that parcel. Sometimes you can run into challenges when you're looking at expanding a building, if you're doing an addition or if you're doing a new building. So that could be a challenge in terms of trying to cross parcel lines, so dealing with two different jurisdictions. So, you know, it's just some extra challenges to think about there again. So just wanted to point that out too. Here's the location map to give you a sense of where you are. Again, the red parcel is the one that's located within the town of Van Wyck. You can see that it does wrap around the existing church building. The parcel shown in purple is the one before you tonight. It's the 1 acre parcel that's located within the town, within unincorporated Lancaster County. The brickyard is located on the left of your screen. You can see that indicated with the blue star. And so parcels that are not incorporated into Van Wyck are represented by the outline purple dash. Here's some location photos, give you a sense of where you are looking at the subject properties. Again, there's 2 parcels, so that's why you're looking at 2 subject parcels. And then looking south along Steel Hill Road as well as north. So when you look at the comprehensive plan for Lancaster County, the future land use category is rural with a community type of rural living. And so that is consistent with the future land use map of Lancaster County. Within the town of Van Wyck, the 8.9 acre parcel, again, the one that town of Van Wyck will be hearing, is proposed to have a future land use designation of rural conservation. So come July, if that is in fact when the comp plan is approved, it would have that different rural conservation district, whereas right now, they are all rural living under the county comp plan. And so the existing church, as well as the 1 acre parcel, again, the 1 acre parcel that is before you tonight, that's proposed to be designated with an institutional future land use category according to the draft future land use plan for the town of Van Wyck. So just some complexities to consider. And you know, despite that, staff recommends approval of the request to rezone both parcels, but again, tonight, for your sake, you will be taking action on the parcel that ends with the project number ending in 3013, and then the tax map number that ends in 13. So, happy to answer any questions if you have them. And I do want to point out that representatives from the church are here, as you've seen already. They have just a little video they want to run through. I think that may have to go on my laptop because we've got some challenges with audio. And I think they also have a photo to show as well.
Just I have one question. I heard a use about a cemetery. It looked like the picture maybe of the property from the street was a cemetery, or at least it looks like it has a fence area around it.
You know, honestly, I'm not sure. I think we'll have to ask that of the applicant.
Okay. As a planning question, you know, in our use regulations under the civic uses for cemetery, which is allowed both in the RN and in the institutional, it does have the information about, you know, a cemetery, and if that cemetery were to grow maybe into one of the other properties or something like that to get larger. I guess, were you aware of a potential use of a cemetery? Or, okay, so you
No,
haven't
sir.
looked at it to see?
No, sir. Tonight was the first time that I heard it was to be a
Okay.
cemetery. But thanks for, I'll take notes on that.
Anyone else? Questions from this seat? Thank you, Katie. You've done good. Is the applicant here, or would they like to add anything further?
Yes, sir, just a concern. We talk about future use of our county, future use of the town of Van Wyck, whichever, you know, we're talking about. Whether it's rural conservation, whether it's multi-population, people have a right to assemble. The freedom of religion in this country is what it was founded on. We're not a development, as we've heard tonight. In some cases, we're not industrial. We are a church. And I think everybody can agree that the church is needed in the place that it's at. I'd hate to live in a town where churches were not welcome, and especially where they're not allowed to bury the dead and we're zoned out. This is what we're talking about. This is how impactful it is. We're not discussing a development. This is a church. And not only that, when we begin to talk about the future growth of a church, our community, since I've been raised here, has absolutely exploded. Therefore, brings people searching for answers and hope and help. And the church is for that. And I would hope that Lancaster County would embrace the fact that churches are needed and that they need to grow as well as the population grows, of course, and not to have a wide variety of restrictions on them. There is no cemetery there, but this is what we're after. We would love to put one there because our job and duty is from the birthing room to the last stages of life to minister to our people. So that's the very purpose of it. But there's not one there now, but as you can see, it's a vacant lot. So, but we do own it. None of this is being purchased. We already own it. So any other questions?
Just one question. Were you aware that the cemetery is a current use that you are allowed to do in the zoning and the?
I'm sorry, please define that again.
The RN zoning that property currently has, you are allowed to do a cemetery in that type of zoning. I didn't know if you were aware of that.
No, what we were told was that to put the cemetery, that the entire property has to be under institutional. That's what we were told. I came here myself personally to ask. And they said, well, yes, you can put it there because it's a church, of course, but it's one's RN, one's institutional. Everything has to be institutional for the church to use it, which also goes back to the town of Van Wyck. Let's say, the balance of the property we need to use for whatever, whatever we're going to use. To do that, we have to be all under the same umbrella, which means I can't have part of it residential and part of it institutional. We own it all anyway, so why not just make it all institutional so it can be used for what it's designed for? And that's the question. But if you're saying we can do it without the permission of the council, then, hey, we're good with that too. But I would rather have it all in use. But that is the plan. We have surveyors already laid out the plan and how it's going to go, and it's a beautiful place. But basically, it's for the ministry of the church, and that's what it's going to be used for. But this is the first I've heard that RN uses are fine for a cemetery.
So I'm not a planner for the county or a zoning person in order to tell you, but I do know that the current uses of the RN, which is currently zoned.
You aware of that? Dave, he's one of our guys at church, so.
Would you give your name and address to the record?
Dave Edwards, 612 Marvin Meadows Road, Indian Land 29707. Mr. Levine, I believe the difference and the distinction here is that generally under the existing Lancaster County UDO requires a minimum of 3 acres for a cemetery, except when it is associated with a church and is immediately adjacent to the church, and the church parcel, the main campus, and the proposed cemetery plot area are both zoned the same. So you're right that if there were 3 acres or more, we wouldn't even be here. But because we only have 1 acre, we're here in order to get them both.
Having said that, Dave, our future plans are, it's 2 acres we have set aside, but you're only for 1 because it's Lancaster County.
Correct.
The other one will be from Van Wyck when we go there. So we have a 2 acre plan is what I'm saying. So, but 1 acre is yes. It's not 3, it's just 1.
Okay, I guess I wouldn't have any more questions for you. It would be for staff on my interpretation of the use, if knowing that really means that it couldn't be there. My only thing is, I don't mind if it's a particular use that needs to be rezoned for. I don't mind, saying that we should approve for a zone. If it's not something that we even really need to change, I just don't. I don't like to change zoning just because, just to do it. But if it was for the use and the use couldn't be done, then I could see the reason to do the rezoning. But you can't answer this question for me. This is only the staff can answer that question for me.
Can't say that I've had to answer any questions about cemeteries, so bear with me. I'm looking at this for the first time. So the way it reads in Chapter 5 is for cemeteries, and it lists a slew of zoning districts, one of which is RN, one is institutional, and there's a minimum lot size requirement. So it says a minimum of 3 contiguous acres shall be required to establish a cemetery. columbarium or mausoleum not located on the same tract of land as the church. So this tells me that they must have spoken with zoning, I suppose.
So because the tracts are separate, the church is not on this tract where the cemetery is, then it doesn't meet that requirement and would need the 3 acres if it's,
Yes.
if it's not. But if it's institutional, would it be considered then, it's still not the same tract as the church? So could you still do a cemetery? That's my question, is it? To me, it looks like those would have to be adjoining parcels.
This has been my concern all along. So the church is, what's the current acreage of your church? The church just itself? 5 acres, okay. So the church itself is 5 acres, and so it looks like the parking lot is located adjacent to the 1 acre parcel in the county. Does that sound correct?
Playground, we have all kinds of stuff,
Yeah. So the purple lot, again, is the lot in question tonight, and so that is adjacent to the parking lot for the church. So again, the lot tonight is 1 acre in size, and the church is the 5 acres. Rox, you look ready to talk.
I'm not sure what I look like, but thank you. I think the operative, I mean, if we want to get, I want to go back to something that Katie had mentioned at the beginning, or a few minutes ago. This is the first we've heard of a proposed cemetery to support, proposed on the property, which is fine. So that's why you're kind of catching us a little flat-footed on this. So having said that, it appears the operative phrase is, you know, the ordinance wants to see a standalone cemetery have 3 contiguous acres if it's not on the same tract of land as a church. So the key point of this that you drill into is, what is a tract of land? Could a tract of land be 2 contiguous parcels or 2 abutting parcels? Could that be a tract? We would need to kind of just drill into that. I mean, we can see if that term is defined. But I mean, look, it's not uncommon to have a campus, if you will, being multiple parcels that are contiguous and under common ownership. So if this were to, I mean, I'm just, again, kind of thinking out loud here, if this came in for a zoning permit and I saw a church that had contiguous acreage next to each other and they wanted to build a mausoleum or a cemetery, I don't think we would, and it had different districts, we would pump the brakes and say, stop, you need to have this rezoned. You know, again, I would want to truth test that to make sure we don't have a different definition of tract, because again, they are contiguous, they are in common ownership. I'm walking and talking at the same time here.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure that, you know, because there's 2 things. Either maybe it could be done now without rezoning, or it could be that we rezone this, and even when we're done rezoning this, you say, oh, well, it's still only an acre and you can't put a cemetery. And I just want to make sure that we clear that that's...
I think the only thing we would probably, again, as I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think just in thinking this out loud, the only rub is that, you know, we would not ever want to see a scenario where the cemetery tract was cut off from the church proper itself and become an independent parcel, if you will.
Right.
Certainly, if it was if it was a single unified parcel or tract, then that would be very unlikely to occur.
Anything else?
No, I don't think I have anything else.
Does staff have anything further to offer?
Nothing further on my part.
I can't.
Does the applicant have anything further?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, like I said, I'm Dave Edwards. I'm a member of the church. In March, Trinity celebrated its 15th anniversary. And statistically, during that same 15-year period, talking about the entire United States, on an average, 3,000 new churches get formed every year. On average, during that same 15-year period, each year, 7,000 churches will fold, never to open their doors again. And the result is a net loss of 4,000 churches per year. Now, when you look at that for 1 year, well, it's 4,000's not that big a number. But if you go over 15 years, you're talking 60,000 churches that closed and are no longer here. If you could bring up that first slide, please. Yes.
We don't have a true standalone definition for tract in our definition section, but he did find a reference in the subdivision ordinance, which does indicate tract is a single piece of land that is then further subdivided into two or more parcels. And so if we were to fall on the letter of the way the Chapter 5 cemetery use standards are written and the definitions and information on that we have in the current code, it is suggested that this cemetery should be on the same parcel of land as the principal church, and therefore it would need consistent
Zoning, yes. Thank you. That answers my question.
And we have looked at this, and we also could not find a true definition, either in the UDO or in South Carolina law, of the word tract. But I think we can easily cure it by going to a lawyer's office and having it, the church can simply deed to itself the two pieces and apply for a new tax parcel ID number, and then you've got a tract. At any rate, where I was going, I think most of you probably are familiar with that sad photograph that was on the front page of the Lancaster News on May the 1st. It shows the demolition of Linwood United Methodist Church. What took 73 years to build took a track hoe less than 3 hours to demolish. The accompanying article that was with this photo told the story, and it's all too familiar. The congregation could no longer afford to maintain its physical plant. As congregations age, the seniors pass away, and if there's no influx of new members and no planning and no young families coming, there's a very predictable outcome, and there it is. Happily and luckily, Trinity has a very different situation. We're growing. Prior to COVID-19, Trinity was holding 2 Sunday morning services to accommodate those who wanted to come. And we also have a Spanish church that uses our facilities in the afternoons that's getting ready to do a plant church over at Eastside Baptist at Rock Hill. Church growth comes generally in one of 2 ways, either by new members joining or the growth of existing young families. Right now, in our nursery, we have at least 60 young people that are between the age of being an infant and being a toddler. It is encouraging to me on a Sunday morning to look out across the parking lot and the Family Life Center and see young husbands and young wives, people that are like 25 to maybe 40 years old, arriving with 1 to 5 young, bright, fresh faces coming to church as a family. Trinity is invested in Lancaster County and in Van Wyck. We can't help the fact that Van Wyck was formed and then annexed. But as the staff report indicates, Trinity owns the 5-acre tract and the building and the 8.8-acre semicircular piece that surrounds us and the 1 acre to the south. And we have brought a short video clip that shows just a little bit of what Trinity is about. And as staff told you before you tonight, it's Trinity's petition to rezone the 1 acre tract As Pastor said, we already own the property, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the actual use and it's compatible, and it meets the current zoning. I thought it was already known, but our goal is a church cemetery. We have consulted with experts. We are in constant touch on at least a monthly basis, if not a weekly basis, with an owner of several very nice cemeteries in Kingsport, Tennessee. And we have architects, as you might imagine. Not every architect does this kind of thing, and some that do specialize in it. And the church recognizes that there are going to be zoning requirements, there's special setbacks, there's from both the sides and from the roads, and for shrubbery. And we're good to go on all of that. The following video that you're going to see was originally made for a different purpose, but it does give you a good idea of the quality and the care that this church takes with its physical plant and all of its undertakings. The video shows the grounds, the exterior of the building, and the interior. And I'm proud to say that the background music that you're going to hear is actually the church choir. And after the video, if you have, Mr. Deese, any questions, or Mr. Levine, any of you, I'll try to answer those that I can, and where I'm incapable, there's two pastors sitting right behind me. So if you would play that, and as Miss C has told me this afternoon or just now, there's a problem with the audio portion of what would be up there. So it may be off, it probably will be off, but you'll at least get to see what's going on. And I apologize for it. I thought earlier in the week that this was good.
Trinity Baptist Church had its humble beginnings in Pastor Rick's home with just 12 people in attendance at that first service. The next service went into Pastor's barn, and people began to come and see what the Lord was doing. And it only took 8 weeks to outgrow that barn. Street in Fort Mill, South Carolina, just off Main Street, right behind the Hardys there. And God continued to grow the church, and He blessed Trinity with increasing souls for the kingdom ever since that day. After being there for just 5 years in Fort Mill at the Parts House, they were able to acquire a beautiful piece of property right here on Steel Hill Road in the booming metropolis of Van Wyck, South Carolina. But as you know, the church building is just that. It's just a building. What is really important here is what had been birthed at Trinity, right here on this location. From 2011 to current day, Trinity has continued to grow by the grace of God. And in this building, on average, nearly 300 souls a year are saved right here. Nearly 5,300 care needs in and out of the church have also been met since Trinity began, and over 400 baptisms have occurred right here at Trinity Baptist Church. Pastor Rick is also very involved because he's held several crusades even in foreign countries, including El Salvador, and he preached with Dr. Ralph Sexton in South Korea too. Pastor has also taken several tour groups from Trinity Baptist Church and the Trinity Bible Institute, and even some from the local community, to the Holy Land of Israel, and he's planning on going back again for a 4th time this year. Trinity continues to support missions around the world and support missionaries and the preaching of the gospel message to the world as well. In 2011, Trinity Bible Institute was birthed right here on this location, and today there are nearly 200 students enrolled, with new satellite campuses joining us live this year. Trinity Bible Institute is teaching students to become the next generation of ministers of the gospel from the pulpit to the public. Students are being raised up to be sent out and to be witnesses to others about the saving grace of Jesus Christ. There are currently over 40 different ministries that happen right here at Trinity Baptist Church doing the Lord's work each week.
every Sunday, that parking lot is full. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff have anything further? Thank you. Commissioners, you have before you rezoning 2020-3013 Trinity Baptist Church. Do I hear a motion?
Do we do public hearing? Sorry, I didn't remember.
Sorry, thank you. At this time, we will consider ourselves in public hearing. No one is signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Levine. Now, you have before you RZ 2020-3013 Trinity Baptist Church. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion from Mr. Levine to approve.
I second it.
Second from Ms. Henson. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Given the intended use of a cemetery and where I see a discontinuation in being able to have a cemetery unless these can potentially both be zoned the same and joined into one parcel, given the intended use they want to do, it appears to me that's the only path forward for doing that.
If it's rezoned and if they want to do a cemetery, they don't have to. You know, that's just, we can't tell them what to put on the property.
Absolutely. I'm just going based on the intended use and the obstacle I see.
The information, yes.
And for the record, I hope I didn't mean to skip over this. We had letters from Bobby and Brenda Little, Christy Rogers, if I can get these two pages separated, and Brianna Rogers in favor of this, for the record. Any further discussion?
Well, Mr. Commissioner,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm definitely will vote for it, but just as maybe a recommendation, whatever you can legally do to bring in those other properties under your one deed, I think it might make it easier for you going forward. Oh, well, this is just recommendation, whatever you can legally do to bring those other properties under one deed for your church, it might make things easier for you going forward.
I've spoken with an attorney who is of the opinion that if the church has to, they can just simply redeed it back to itself and get a single parcel ID number, and we're good to go.
Yeah, that is our intent. That is
you.
our intent. Thank you so much.
Anything further? Hearing nothing, do we have a roll call vote, please? Do have a motion to approve from Mr. Levine, a second from Ms. Henson.
4.
4.
4.
Against. The motion to approve is passed by a vote of 3-1. This will go to county council for further consideration. I'm sorry, this will go to the town of Van Wyck.
So this parcel will go to our county council,
Right, it'll go to our
June.
county council.
June 14th, I believe the date is. And then you're correct, the second parcel goes next week on the 25th to the Town of Van Wyck Planning Commission.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next item is RZ 2021-0650, Evans Road Project, Mr. Teff.
Good evening, Council. As indicated, this is RZ 2021-0650. It's a request to rezone a 1.203 acre portion property from low-density residential district to manufactured home district. The property is located on the west side of Evans Road. West Side of Evans Road, just across from 1835 Evans Drive. The intent is to locate a mobile home currently on 1835 Evans Drive to that subject property. As you can see on the map there on the right-hand side of the screen, it's kind of the one that's cross-hatched there right up along Evans Road. That's essentially the property in question. It's rough, it's not exact, but it's rough there. A little bit of history. Back in February 19, 2019, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of RZ 19-008 with regards to the parcel immediately to the north of the subject item to rezone that from low-density residential to MH. County Council ultimately approved that, and that parcel was rezoned to manufactured home, and a home manufactured home sited on that property. Just to give you a little bit more ideas to where we are with this, you can see the parcel there highlighted in yellow. That is the overall parcel now. The piece that is the subject of the request is there kind of in purple and cross-hatched. To the south, you can see kind of the blue star there. That is Beacon Baptist Church. A little bit past that is the Countryside Mobile Home Park. Kind of just to give you a rough idea as to where this all is on the west side there of Evans Road, excuse me. Whoop. Photo here on the left is just standing at the property there on the left and looking north along Evans Road. The photo on the right there is looking south along Evans Road from the same spot, just turned around. Photo on the left in this slide is just looking directly at the property. It is a heavily wooded parcel at the moment. And then on the right is directly across the street at the parcel there that is, was it 1835? I think it was 1835 Evans Drive. I'm saying I have road and drive and the same thing, so one of those is wrong. This is just an aerial. Again, this is a very rough estimate of what the parcel would be at. It's not exact. That's the area that's highlighted there in white. Just to the north of that, that is the area that was rezoned back in 2019. Go over a couple items there. The properties adjacent to this are zoned typically low-density residential, general business, which is to the south, and MH. Further out from this, there are more properties zoned low-density residential across the street, medium-density residential, which is along a large area all around the property, mobile home, and there's some further to the south, and institutional also further to the south there. The general character of the neighborhood is of single-family homes on lots of varying sizes, wooded vacant parcels, the church and Countryside Mobile Home Park, which is about 1,600 feet to the south of this. A rezoning of the portion of the parcel from LDR to MH could be considered consistent with the surrounding area. Again, there is MH immediately to the north, and there are some parcels zoned MH further to the south. The rezoning could also be viewed as a de-intensification of the area and inconsistent with the overall area. By that, we'll switch here to this zoning map. The parcel at hand is, the overall parcel is kind of more towards the center of the screen. You can still see that kind of purple crosshatch on it there. You see there's a large area of low-density residential across Evans Drive to the east of it, but the predominant zoning in the surrounding area is medium-density residential. Going to mobile home, which there is some, majority of that is the aforementioned Countryside Mobile Home Park to the south. Going down to mobile home would be kind of a de-intensification of what is in this area in terms of its current density. When we look at the comprehensive plan for this, the future land use for this parcel is urban. Community type is identified as walkable neighborhood with additional intensity. That is looked at as being a deliberately structured mix of dwelling types in a development context that often operates through the spectrum of uses, densities, and/or land value. But one little note there, and kind of getting back to the density issue, is when we look at the form and pattern table that is in the comprehensive plan for this land use category, residential density for the urban category is between 4 and 20 dwelling units to the acre, is what it would support, which is very much a much higher number than you would get through MH. And certainly even still higher than what you get from the predominantly zoning of the area of MDR and even LDR. Typical development in this land use category, you see there are churches, condominiums, parks, governmental buildings, natural areas, offices, restaurants, schools, single family attached and detached homes. not mobile homes, not manufactured homes. This land use category is generally inconsistent with the MH district. I want to kind of drop back and talk a little bit about the rezoning from 2019, since this was one that was approved. As I stated, this parcel is has the land use category designation of urban. That's the red color that's there. Yellow, which is almost immediately adjacent to the south, is transitional. The rezoning back in 2019, staff at that time did not specifically identify any inconsistency with the adopted comprehensive plan. Staff support at that time appears to have been based on a finding that surrounding properties in the immediate vicinity contain manufactured homes. Therefore, the request to place a mobile home on the property is considered a compatible use. What is at issue there is the surrounding mobile homes are all to the south and all in the transitional future land use category, which does identify manufactured homes as a compatible type of development for that land use. So those are all fine and consistent. This being in the urban land use category, that's not necessarily the case. So there appears to be, back in 2019, a bit of an error, if you will, in having at least not identified that inconsistency with what the request was. With regards to infrastructure, there's really no issues to address here. There's nothing warranting a traffic impact study this time. Public water and sewer is available in close proximity to the subject property, and there will be no impact on schools by the intended manufactured home. This staff is recommending disapproval of the rezoning request. Available if you have any questions.
Questions from Mr. Tiff? Thank you. Is the applicant here? Do you have anything to offer?
Good evening. My name is Fred Mangano. I live at 8.
Mangano, you've signed up to speak in...
I believe I have.
Public hearing too.
Oh, do I need to wait then?
Speak either one.
Okay, you can cross me off the public hearing. I live at 1845, which is right next to the mobile home. If you remember the picture, we'd like to move. That was my father, my father lived there. He is now, we care for him, he has dementia. So it's vacant. My daughter just graduated college. So if you remember from the picture, a driveway is all that separates the two homes. We do own the 13 acres across the street. Friends of ours from church, they're in their 80s. We look after them. We gave them that first lot, and that was the house he chose. That's why we had to rezone that one. The entire property is about 120 acres. If you get a chance, drive by. It's beautiful. We work on it all the time. We farm it. But our family wants to live there. So we simply want to move the current mobile home across the street to a little larger lot for a young lady or my son, growing family, that's all. The mobile home currently that's there is grandfather's. So once we move it, another mobile home cannot go there. So there will be no addition mobile homes to the area. So I just wanted to make that point. Like I said, we just want to have a little more land for whoever in the family lives at that dwelling. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Any comments?
I'm sorry, I just heard a statement about once the mobile home is moved from one property, I just heard that there couldn't be one put back on it. Is there?
Oh, from what I understand, his grandfather where it's at, but the zoning wouldn't allow it to go back there without.
The one across the street, not the one that we rezoned in 2019. The one.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
Yes, please.
My understanding, the mobile home, there was a mobile home when we bought the house there. It was placed there in 1980. It was falling apart. We spoke to someone at one of the buildings here. We wanted to put a larger one in for my father. And the only reason we were allowed to do that was because the original one was grandfathered. And we were told if we ever moved that, we could never put another one back. That's what we were told by one of the offices. we have no plans to put anything there other than a garden.
Right.
So,
Right, okay.
I don't know if that clarified anything.
Yeah, so this is across the street from the subject property is where you would remove them.
If,
On the
let's see,
right
that's
side
the
of the road.
barn. I'm sorry, okay, so across the street, you'll see the main house is to the right and almost center. There's a driveway, and then just north of that is the mobile home in question.
Okay.
That's correct. That, we want to move across the street to that parcel. What was there when we bought the house 12 years ago was a much smaller, almost unlivable mobile home. To put the new one in and get the permit, we had to get approval, but what they told us is if we ever move that out, that we would never be able to put anything back in there. Again, which is fine, we have no interest in putting anything there, because the two are right on top of each other. There's no yard, because right behind the mobile home is our barn, and that's where the 100-acre farm begins.
Okay, okay, thank
You
you.
have young kids,
That
hard to-
clears it up, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? We will consider ourselves in public hearing. Mr. Mangano has graciously spoke earlier, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing on this matter. And we will look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve from Ms. Henson,
I'll second the motion.
second from Mr. Levine. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This property, I was on the planning commission 2 years ago, I think, when we did the first property that was on here to put a manufactured home on it. At the time, there was a very large concern from the neighbors over in Old Linwood neighborhood regarding the fact that they already had the mobile home park that was south of here, and their concern about, you know, the continued spread of adding the manufactured homes where they have their medium-density residential single-family units. And at the time, this lot was put here in order to make it easy enough to care for a member of the family. And that explanation is something that we typically do, you know, if we have a larger lot and someone just wants to put one manufactured home on 1 acre or something, or the minimum size. Since this is the second property that's being asked to put a manufactured home here, I don't look at this as the same as the first property that was the one that was primarily put there for the care of the family. And usually, you know, if we're talking about someone just wanting to put one for a family member, that's fine. But once you start putting more than one and keep splitting up a property, this is kind of going right to the fears, I think, of what we got from the people who were here last time when we were talking about the single zoning of the one property. So just based on that, you know, I don't necessarily agree with this rezoning, given that this is not just you know, the 1 acre lot that's being turned into a manufactured home. This is a second lot of a property that's changing to that.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Anyone else?
I thought it was the same property. How many mobile homes is on this property?
One.
Just one?
No, there's none on that particular
There's none
property.
on this particular property,
The mobile home that he wants to put on that property is across the street.
right?
He wants to move it over there.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay.
Good. That answers the question. Anyone else? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Against?
For.
Against?
Against. Motion to approve failed by a vote of 3 to 1. This will go to county council for further consideration. The next is RZ 2021-0747, Ms. Ashley Davis. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Let me catch up in the slides here. So this is a request to rezone 5.3 acres from MX to regional business right at the intersection of Possum Hollow Road and Edgewater Corporate Parkway. It is in the Edgewater Corporate Park, so that's something to keep in mind here. The applicant is 1415 LLC. They actually just recently purchased the property. You may have seen it in the Herald recently. It was on the list of 12 most expensive properties purchased in Lancaster County recently. So just some background for those of you who have been on the board for a little bit. In 2020, we had a mixed-use rezoning for all parcels that were under 25 acres, zoned mixed use, to try and put them into conforming zoning districts. At that time, staff was recommending the regional business zoning for consistency with the rest of the corporate park. The owner of the property at that time opted out of the rezoning in hopes that this would be an expansion of the Flats apartment complex, which is right across the road here. The property was sold. The current property owners are seeking that regional business rezoning. Staff doesn't necessarily have an issue with it. It's what we were going to recommend in the first place. There is a secondary picture here that you'll probably see in the coming months. This parcel is subject to the requirements of the original preliminary plat that was approved back in 2005, creating Edgewater Corporate Park. So there's some setbacks that have changed since the original creation of the park that can be adjusted to current standards. So you may see a preliminary plat amendment in the next couple of months. Some compatibility with surrounding uses. Like I said, the rest of the corporate parkway is zoned regional business aside from the one mixed-use parcel where the Flats apartment complex is located. You've also got the MX, PB, neighborhood business, all kind of around there. So you've got a mix of business-type districts. Staff has received no calls from the public. I happen to know for a fact that this sign is still out there. Sometimes our signs go missing. This sign is still out there. I was out there the other day. Here's a location map for you. So the red star is at the intersection of 521 and 160. The blue star is the Flats apartment complex, and the teal star, we'll call it, is the intersection of Possum Hollow and 160. Some location photos. Right now the parcel is vacant. They are proposing the rezoning to put some medical office space, which, as mentioned earlier, might actually be really useful with the incoming hospital. Here's some more location photos for you. Like I said, the only buildings you'll see in these pictures right now are the buildings associated with the Flats apartment complex. The future land use designation is neighborhood mixed use with a community type of walkable neighborhood, so this is consistent with the future land use map. Staff is recommending approval. I do not believe the applicant is here. No.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Davis? Thank you, Dean. We will ask again if the applicant's here. We don't see anybody stand, so we'll take it. At this time, we'll consider ourselves in public hearing. RZ 2021-0747. No one is signed to speak to this, so we'll consider ourselves out of public hearing. Any further questions for staff? Hearing none, thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
A motion to approve, Mr. Levine.
I second it.
Second from Ms. Henson. Discussion. Hearing none, we have a roll call vote, please.
4. 4.
4.
4. Motion to approve is passed by a vote of 4-0. This too will go to county council for further consideration. The next item, conditional use permit 2021-0538. Ms. Davis?
This is a conditional use request by Janet Nabeev. She's actually here, so we have that. This is a request to allow both vehicle rental, leasing, and sales, which is one category, as well as major maintenance and repair, which is another category, both of which require a conditional use, both of which have their own sets of standards, which are included in your staff reports. This is located at 1449 Memorial Park Road. If you put that in your GPS, that might actually take you to somewhere slightly further down the road, but you'll find it. This is a location map for you. Lancaster Memorial Park is just up the road. It's the blue star. The red star is the city, is a parcel that is actually in the city. So just for reference, we are very, very close to the kind of southwestern side of the city limits. As you'll notice from this picture, the parcel is fairly small in size. It's about 0.46 acres. This is where it gets a little tricky. The original plan, which is included in your staff reports that went out, the packets that went out a while back, had a 10-foot buffer, type C buffer, all the way on the three sides of the property. In talking with the engineer, when we talked at the workshop, we requested that they demonstrate how they would be able to construct a berm in that 10-foot area. And when talking with Donna Hagans, who's the engineer on this project, she didn't realize a berm was a requirement. So in talking with her, she kind of started rethinking the layout of the lot. She is confident that she can get a berm in kind of two locations, but in other locations, she's increased the buffer to a 25-foot buffer, which is still a type C. In type C buffers, there's three different options. So that they've increased to a 25-foot buffer, which only requires a fence and plantings as opposed to the berm. So you've got a berm in kind of two sections, and then the rest would just have the fence and plantings. Staff still has some concerns about the feasibility of this. We haven't received anything demonstrating a kind of cut through showing how this would be achieved as far as if a berm were to drain straight into the side of the building, or if you could actually feasibly put a berm on this lot. So there's still quite a few concerns on that, and you'll notice that the change that has been made is actually going to cause them to lose a couple of parking spaces. Staff received this change today, so I haven't had a chance to fully review whether or not they're still able to meet their parking requirements by losing some of these spots. I think they are, but I can't promise you. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use with the condition that the applicant provides proof that the required construction of the berm on site is feasible, given the site constraints, prior to the hearing before County Council. And typically, this is one of just our common comments, but addressing all of their outstanding TRC comments prior to the site plan phase.
Questions for Ms. Davis?
The applicant is here, if you guys want to speak with her.
I've been out there 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I know the area. I've been here all my life. The size of that building and the lot being a tad under 100, a tad under 200. They're going to have to demonstrate that property can accommodate the buffering that's required. They have really got to demonstrate that. I haven't seen it on this map. So that's all I got to say. Anything? Well, thank you, Ms. Davis. Does the applicant have anything they would like to offer? please give your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Liana Nabieva, 13214 Mallard Landing Road, Charlotte, North Carolina 28278. I'm here on behalf of my dad, applicant. I just want to say that it's his dream to open this shop. It's going to be a small family business, and my family and I would like to support him in opening this shop, and we're working on it to accommodate the burn. And he's been a mechanic for over 20 years, and he loves fixing cars, and he wants to open this shop. It was an active shop, and we're just purchased it, so we want to open it, and we hope you grant us this permit so we can go with and open this shop immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Excuse me. Right. Anything further? Any other questions for staff? We will consider ourselves in public hearing on this matter. And I did have two people, I think, that had signed up to speak, or maybe it was just one. If you come forward and give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Janet Nabieva. 13130 Reunion Street, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28278. I'm doing this with my sister on behalf of our dad, since he doesn't speak English, so I'm here to help with that. And then, just like my sister said, that's all his dream. He's doing this for more than 20 years, but 20 years in the United States. He's been doing this since he was little, and his dream is to build up the future for his son, for my little brother, so they can have this family business. So, and that's what we are hoping you all guys approve us so we can go forward with it and help community to buy in affordable prices, cars, fixing, painting, and all that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Liana, did you want to have anything further to say? Okay, thank you. At this time, we will consider ourselves out of public hearing on this matter. Commissioners, do you have anything further for staff? Okay, I'll look for a motion for conditional use permit, 210538.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add a couple
Yes, sir.
words. Certainly. So I think just some food for thought items. So I think that as Ashley mentioned, staff does have the same concerns on whether or not that berm can be put on the side property line as shown. And we all know what looks good on a two-dimensional drawing doesn't always work in the three-dimensional world that we live in. So we have asked the engineer of record to provide the county with a section drawing to show exactly how it goes in there, how it's drained, all the features that Ashley mentioned. And we think this is a reasonable ask for given the constraints. So the Planning Commission, if it so chose, could have a couple options here how to manage this. So under Ashley's recommendation, the staff is recommending that the Planning Commission make a final recommendation with a condition being that we resolve this prior to getting before council. And that's certainly a position the Planning Commission could take. You could also ask to have this come back to you at a later meeting with the desired information. And maybe there's more information that you would like to see beyond a section drawing. But I just want to make sure that there's a couple different options here for you. So just wanted to refresh you on those. That's all I have.
I will still accept the motion at this time with those conditions.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for approval with the recommendations from planning staff, which are, do you want me to read the, I'll read them for the record, just to. Yeah, given that the applicant provides proof that the required construction of a berm on site is feasible, given the existing site constraint prior to hearing before County Council, in the form of the drawings that the planning staff has asked for. And number two, that they address all other outstanding TRC, evolve comments identified during the conditional use permit review during the site plan phase.
Okay.
And I second that motion.
A motion from Mr. Levine, a second from Ms. Henson, to approve with the conditions that all TRC requirements be met, and that the site development plan be sufficient to for the planning staff to agree to. And this has to be done prior to council's third reading, right?
It would be prior to, this will be approved through a resolution, so it'll only have
There'll
one
just be
reading.
one, that's right, there's only one council hearing, so it has to be done before going to council. But this will go to council once those conditions are with the planning staff. All right, all in favor? No, let's have a roll call vote. Please. So, I get a hand.
4.
Jill Henson,
4.
Ed Levine,
4.
Chairman Dees,
4. Motion passed. A vote of 4-0, and this will go to county council once you've got everything to staff that's asked for in the conditions. And next is Resolution 2020-2054, Provident Bayard LLC, Mrs. Katie C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last but not least for me tonight is Wilson Creek preliminary plat. Yay. Okay, so this has been a long time coming. So here's a preliminary plat for 325 single-family lots. Access will be taken off of Shelley Mullis and both Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris Roads. The development will include a collector road from the RFAT's collector road study, and that will be incorporated into the design of the project. And also, this project is located within the Carolina Thread Trail overlay, so a segment of the trail is proposed to be installed as well. I think I mentioned it later, but it's also subject to the heel splitter overlay. Oh my goodness. All right, so here's the map to orient you. Again, Shelley Mullis is located, where you see all the blue stars. So Red Star is there located at the intersection of Shelley Mullis and 521. But on the opposite end here, highlighted in yellow, are all the parcels that collectively make up this property. Here are some photos to orient you with the property. On the left is looking at the subject property from Shelley Mullis. On the right is looking across Shelley Mullis Road. There's a church there. Thank you. Looking east along Shelley Mullis Road, that's on the left, and then looking south along Henry Harris Road is on the right. Okay, here's a screenshot of the preliminary plat. It's the best collective photo I could get to include in this photo. Again, you've got a note indicating where Shelley Mullis Road is. That is the road that is on the left-hand side of your screen here, and then Henry Harris Road is located on the right. So. Some things to point out here are, 6 Mile Creek is located on the bottom of the screen here, or which would be the kind of west, southwest, western portion of the property. I always have to orient myself. And so one thing also to note is if you look up at the intersection of Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris Road, that parcel is 2 acres in size, so that came through as part of the rezoning process that came before you. So was the rezoning and the development agreement. And so that parcel is, thank you, that parcel is to be dedicated to Lancaster County for some use in the future. Tentatively, the thought is that it could be used for a fire station, but, you know, the county has not gotten into the details of that. But it's shown here because the applicant has agreed to at least grade the site, so that you know, it will certainly be helpful to have that while they are mobilized for the residential pieces, and also extend utilities so that, you know, the connection could be made in the future. So some highlights of staff comments that still need to be addressed or things to point out are sidewalks. Sidewalks are required along Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris Roads. The RFAT's Collector Road, the segment will be incorporated into the overall design, and it's also, just going back to that, you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, that would lend itself to the properties to the right connecting to that as well. So, so again, that could run parallel to Henry Harris, but then ultimately connect through this development. Again, the Carolina Thread Trail. So, you know, I think we talked about this. I know we talked about this at the workshop. So, again, we have to balance the provision of where to put this segment of the Carolina Thread Trail with it being within the heel splitter overlay, trying to be mindful of that for the applicant. Rox and Scott, Edgar and I had a call with the Fish and Wildlife Service, Morgan, and it was a very good call. We do have some good options, we believe, that will allow for the connection of the extension of the segment of the Carolina Thread Trail in a way that should not be so burdensome for the applicant, because it's certainly a concern anytime you have to talk about credits. You know, nobody wants to have to take on any more than they have to do. But again, I think we've come to some good discussion points with Fish and Wildlife Service. So, but that's such a detailed process. So, and part of the recommendation that staff has for this preliminary plat is to allow us to continue to work through that with the applicant, because there's more that needs to be done. Some of the things we're talking about is taking advantage of the existing sewer easement, and so again, there are just a lot of details we don't know yet. So it's again, just want to point that out, that that's not anything we see a reason to hold up the recommendation of this for. For the SCDOT and Lancaster County, a traffic circle is proposed back here again at the intersection of Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris Road. We've already, their team has already started the discussion on preparation for the traffic circle. So that's you know, they've got a good start on that. And so again, you got to there's a lot involved there, certainly, to make that happen. You need quite a bit of space, but they are starting that process, and of course have to work through this with the DOT and also Lancaster County for the roads. Sorry. Okay. For the Water and Sewer District, there is an adequate pump station turnaround that's required. And also, when I spoke with James with the Water and Sewer District, the exact sewer location is still to be determined. They are showing an easement on the preliminary plat. You can see that shown there, but he said that will be done in phases, the extension of the sewer in phases. And so, again, they have some things to still be determined. Nothing that we have concerns about. It's just more that they need to work through in preparation for the civil plan. And then also, still, you know, they don't know the total credits needed. Won't know that until they get the civil plans for the heel splitter overlay. Okay. So I've given you a lot to think about. Staff does recommend a conditional approval of this preliminary plat, subject to the conditions that they continue to address any outstanding TRC comments. And then also working with staff, work on relocating the proposed Carolina Thread Trail segment. It is currently shown as a sidewalk coming from Henry Harris, taking advantage of the sidewalk network through the neighborhood, and then ultimately ending on Shelley Mullis Road. Again, as we discussed at the workshop, staff does believe that this is something, when you're talking about a trail, and especially the Carolina Thread Trail, this is something that, if you can, should be taking advantage of a natural scenery and natural layout. And again, in a way that hopefully is not a burden to the applicant. We want to be mindful of that too. So again, the final alignment should be approved with the civil construction plans, and then also sidewalks to be provided along Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris Roads. The applicant is here, so if you have any questions of them, they probably would like to say something as well, but I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Levine.
The 2 acres that's deeded to the county, is that 2 acres before a traffic circle is made, or is that 2 acres now and a traffic circle will use some of the property?
So, for the complete document that went forward to council to document the development agreement, we have a plat that shows the 2 acres, and so that's what they're trying to be mindful of, and they know they need to be mindful of, because again, that's what's solidified in that final agreement. And so right now, they're still working through that, because, they're trying to be respectful and minimize the impact they'll have on the other 3 corners.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yet we will hold the line on the 2 acres.
Okay.
So, again, just not sure how that's ultimately going to look out, but that is something that they're working to be mindful of.
Okay. And I know this is one that, you're definitely, we're thinking that none of these things should be issues that we want to do this, but I guess I just want to make sure the point about the Carolina Thread Trail, with the way the recommendation is written, this is that the final plan that we have will relocate that trail to the natural area, right?
Well, that's what we're hoping for. So, Ken, come on in.
Give your name and
I didn't know I was going to present, so I didn't
Give your
address
name
for
and
the
address
occasion,
for
so-
the record, please.
I'm sorry?
Give your name and address for the record.
Ken Holbrooks, 1105 Industrial Drive, Matthews, North Carolina.
Thank you.
Couple of questions. So first of all, the 2 acres, it's in the agreement, it's dictated. The only thing I would say a little different, and I listened to a lot of discussion on cemetery earlier, and we were doing our own little educational discussion back here on it. Plat, which was used, and I know we've had a discussion, it's 2 acres. It's going to be very similar in configuration, but because of the roundabout, we're not going to give you like this long skinny thing. It's changed a little bit, but we're making sure you can fit a fire station in it. We're already going through the design elements now. We met with SCDOT again the other day over it, and she's right. We're trying to make sure that we're a little bit good stewards and making sure you get the 2 acres you want, but also making sure that we don't blow a church up,
Sure.
to be frank. And so we're trying to make sure everybody's happy at the same time. We think we can do that now, so, and SCDOT is being really good to work with. The Thread Trail, considering we've been talking about that for 15 months, and I love trails, we originally proposed it through the neighborhood, and then later we're told to go up and down the road, and now it's back to in the neighborhood. We think that's a great idea. We work with these guys all the time, and I mean, they and our planners and engineers understand this better than us, and we think the community will be better for having it through there. The only thing that came up was trying to deal with the hill splitters, because as you know, Fish and Wildlife sometimes tells us what to do more than the other way around. So I think somebody came up with the idea of trying to utilize where the sewer easement is, which is where a lot of trails go. If you go up into the greenways, most of them do the same thing. So we're trying to work along with those. We agree to it. I think she's probably expressed it the best, which is we still don't know exactly where that is. We're still in the design, working on that. But I mean, we've agreed to do that, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Yeah, basically the recommendation, when we approve this and go with a condition, my goal here is really that at the end of the day, the Carolina Thread Trail will be somewhere other than on the sidewalk through the neighborhood. It will be through the natural area, whether that's in the sewer easement or something. And it's one thing to, cross the street. There's definitely some examples of our Carolina Thread Trail doing that, going through a street in a neighborhood.
Oh, that's a good point. So it probably will hit like we just did one in Cornelius last night, and the trail itself goes through a natural area, then it comes back in through sidewalk, then comes back and goes to their place. So I would be definitely telling you the wrong thing if I said it's not going to be on a sidewalk at some point, but the majority of it is not. When it comes in off of the creek down at the bottom of the hill on Shelley Mullis, over by the Shelley Woods community, it would be going along that creek, and then it would be coming back up. At some point, it will have to hit a sidewalk just because of the nature of the neighborhood, and it may be on there for, 100 feet or something. So I don't want to give the impression it's never going to be that way, but then it would go back and then hit Henry Harris at that point. And so we're letting professionals that understand that better than us figure that out.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And any others that, and just we are in the middle of design on the roundabout and the sewer. Already, even though we're ahead of game, because literally phase 1 is taking up sewer in the Shelley Woods lift station, and we've worked with that with the district already, but we're going to go ahead and design it so we have all that stuff laid out ahead of time.
Thank you.
I do need to add that part of this, of course, requires a traffic impact analysis, but this was done well in advance, and so that's been signed off on. And the TIA did lay out 2 alternatives. One alternative was for a traffic light at the intersection of Shelley Mullis and Henry Harris, or alternative 2 is a roundabout. And as you can see, alternative 2 is the route that we are going with.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Thank you, Ms. C. At this time, we will call this into public hearing. No one is signed to speak to this, but we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. And I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make another long motion to approve with
shortening.
Yeah, with the following conditions. That the applicant address the outstanding TRC evolve comments, and that the applicant, in coordination with staff, relocate proposed Carolina Thread Trail alignment of the natural areas of the site. Final alignment shall be approved with civil construction plans, and that the applicant will be providing sidewalks along Shelley, Mullis, and Henry Harris roads.
You mind if I say it this way? With all the conditions.
Recommended by the planning staff.
With completion of all conditions shown by staff.
That will work for me.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve with these conditions, that all conditions shown by staff be completed. Is that good?
That will work.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? We have a roll call vote, please.
McNeely,
For.
Wilhenson,
Against.
and Levine,
4.
Chairman Dees,
Four. Motion to approve has been passed by a vote of 3-1. Excuse me. And this will go to county council. I'm sorry, it does not go to county council. It is a done deal right now. Getting my councils mixed up tonight. Next is SD 2020-1750. It's Katie C. This one has been, it's been postponed, but you still got.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why it's in that order. Not sure why it's in that order. That was scheduled to be on tonight's agenda. Thankfully, the applicant has requested to put that on the June agenda to give them more time to work through some items with the Water and Sewer District.
Thank you. And before you go back, Resolution CP 2020-3057, the Quarry Project.
Yes, you remember that project. Okay, so the applicant requested to pull their application, and so it is not going on to council. I have no idea if they will be looking to resubmit at some point in the future. I asked, and they said not that they know of, but that was the consultant that I was speaking with. So at this time, again, it is no longer moving forward in any capacity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Out of sight and out of mind. Now, last item, Mr. Teff. You get to do this one. It's an application, UDO text amendment 2021-0704, restaurant parking.
Okay. All right, good evening again. As mentioned, this is a text amendment addressing essentially parking requirements in our UDO. Recent developments have shown us that some of the parking required for restaurant and other commercial / entertainment uses as set out in our UDO are inadequate and have been resulting in some parking spillover onto adjacent properties. Accordingly, we are looking to amend Chapter 7 of the UDO to increase or establish certain off-street parking requirements. Just a quick overview of the amendment. We would amend Section 7.2.4A, parking requirements by use table. We would establish a parking requirement for bar, tavern, brew pub use. That would be at 1 space per 50 square feet of indoor seating area, along with 1 space per 400 square feet of brewing area, and 1 space per 3 occupants in the outdoor seating areas, dance floors, etc. For restaurant use, we would be amending the existing requirement, which is at 1 space per 250 square feet of gross leasable floor area. That would now become 1 space per 75 square feet of indoor seating area, and 1 per 3 occupants in the outdoor seating area, dance floor, etc. These parking requirements were based upon some research and analysis from surrounding jurisdictions to Lancaster County and within, as well as others located across North and South Carolina. This is what's provided to you in your packet. It's essentially the table that went through all of that, identifying the various jurisdictions as well as what essentially their requirements were for the various uses there, or what was as close as they had, if they had something that was reasonably close in their UDO, to where we could kind of come across with a, I guess, kind of an equalized version, so we were looking at everything kind of at the same playing field to kind of see where we fit in with them and what seemed to be, if there was a consistent rate going out there in terms of for the development community. In addition to that, in the amendment there, we are also dealing with Section 7.2.4C, which is exemptions and adjustments. We're going to strike that section in its entirety. Reasoning for that is that it is really not, it's more consistent with an urban development pattern and not really consistent with the general suburban or rural development patterns in Lancaster County. And also that its language is generally contrary to the balance of the amendment that's being proposed. Basically, it sets a flat rate for any, if I'm remembering correctly, any non-residential development in, I think, the MX and RMX districts, which is typically where these will probably end up, these requirements will end up being at least mostly found. Conclusion there, the amendment would increase the amount of off-street parking required to be provided for future restaurant development and expansions. It would not impact or otherwise require any existing restaurants to provide additional parking. The amendment is consistent with our comprehensive plan as well as SC Code Title VI. Staff obviously is recommending approval of the text amendment. Available if you have any questions.
Questions from Mr. Teff? Thank you, sir. This time we will consider ourselves in public hearing on this matter. No one has signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you UDO text amendment. Let me get it back up. 2021-0704 restaurant parking. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion from Mr. Levine
I'll second it.
and a second from Ms. Henson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank the planning staff for the research they did for that comparison. Was really great. Thanks a lot.
Really good.
It was good. Thank you. Hearing nothing further, we have a roll call vote, please.
McNeely,
For.
Sheila Henson,
For.
Ben Levine,
Four.
Chairman Dees,
4. The motion to approve UDO text amendment 2021-0704 has been approved by a vote of 4-0, and this will go to county council. And at this time, I would make one statement, and I'm sure that we all miss him here tonight. Mr. Jones has resigned his position as a commissioner due to conflict with his work and this type thing. He apologized for having to do so, but his resignation was by letter form and it was immediate, so. We will be looking for Chairman Harper, the county council, to find him another person to fill that seat, so. Just as information. We have some new business.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to, actually, I'll use this as an opportunity to give you an overview for next month's cases, just to let you know. We have, if my math is correct, 8 rezonings, 1 conditional use, and 1 preliminary plat. The fortunate part, if there is a positive narrative in that the rezoning cases are a little bit more of a modest size. I promise there won't be any more 30-acre apartment complexes or anything like that. So the cases are a little bit smaller, but we will certainly be efficient with our time and presentations next month and just try to move through those as quickly as possible. And I will add, as we get, as we progress in the county's work program for the planning department and development services, we're going to be taking on the UDO update is going to be gearing up. We've got a RFP ending, I think, on Thursday or Friday of this week for the new comprehensive plan. So there's going to be some other major secondary projects that are going to be active that we're not going to, staff is not going to be able to keep pace with 11, cases going to the Planning Commissioner Council at any given time. So what you're going to see moving forward is kind of a governor put on these cases, how many cases we can kind of receive, particularly for rezonings. And that's just to manage the workflow. And so we'll come up with a standard system for that so it's fair and equitable. But I just want to make the Planning Commission aware that they're getting through June. We'll probably see maybe not so many cases, and there'll be a reason for that. So.
Okay. And there's one other item that will be on the agenda for next meeting that we don't want to forget, and that's the school impact fee. Okay. That cleaned it up. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn, please.
Travis?
Let us go.
Yeah.
So
They're adjourned. Thank you for being here.
There are box meals in the break room if you didn't already get one, so just don't forget that.
Thanks, staff. Y'all doing a super job.
Thank you.
Could not think about it the way you do it. These will go in the record. These will go in the record, I guess.
Lord,
Gather up this crowd.
Last two I've gotten home at about at 10, so I've gotten home at 11, 11:30. This is
Close back up.
this is refreshing, man.
scoot on.
I don't mind. I'm here to serve, you know?
sure he's all right.
I'll be there in a minute, Jennifer.
Oh, God.